everybody. Before we jump into today's episode, we have two sponsors we want to say thank you to for supporting this show. The first one is Routine. You guys have heard me talk about Routine, honestly, back from the early days of the podcast, and it's still a product I use every single morning. They have a prompt for me here. I'm going to do a little impromptu on this ad read today because honestly, this is a product that I truly believe in. And so I'm just going to tell you guys exactly what I think and why. First and foremost, this is a stat that they shared, but when you sleep, you lose between a pound and a half of water. And most of that's just sweating while you sleep. I used to not know if that was actually true, to be honest. I felt like a pound to a pound and a half of water seemed like quite a bit while I slept. But the one thing I did constantly pay attention to when I started using Routine was just the fact that before using Routine, I always felt a little dehydrated in the morning. And I'm one of those people that when I get up really early usually. I work out. One of the first things I do is some form of fitness. It's just like what I do before everyone's awake. And so it's very easy for me to grab a coffee, pre-workout, an energy drink, something with caffeine in it, and just go. When I am good about using Routine, first, I basically they come in these little single serve packets. They contain half an organic lemon, a tablespoon of apple cider vinegar, Himalayan sea salt, all 6 essential electrolytes, and they have no sugar in them at all. A lot of hydration products are going to have sugar. So one of the things about Routine that I love is that there's no sugar in there. So when I am good about doing this consistently, I will take one of those single serve packets, I'll throw it in my mixer bottle, and whether I also put in a pre-workout or something with caffeine or I just drink that separately, I try to drink that first. And the days I do that, I do genuinely feel hydrated and just have a different form of clarity all morning. A lot of people have tried to make their own homemade versions of Routine, right? You see people they take a shot of the apple cider vinegar, they put a little sea salt, a little lemon in a drink. This is essentially that, but in a product that you can take with you on the go, have it ready for you first thing in the morning. I know me personally, when I'm groggy rolling out of bed, the last thing I want to do is, squeeze a lemon, cut lemons up, go get the apple cider vinegar, find my sea salt. I just rip this packet open, throw it in my water, drink it, and it's good to go. You can try yours today. If you haven't tried it yet and you've been listening to this podcast for years, just try the damn Routine. Give it a shot. You can use code ShaneWhite30 and get 30% off your first order. So you get 30% off by using code ShaneWhite30 and go to yourroutine.com. To make it even easier, I've added the link to yourroutine.com in the show notes. So just click on the show notes for this episode, click on the link to yourroutine.com, and don't forget to use code ShaneWhite30. All right, guys, today's episode is also brought to you by NeuroRoast. Again, I'm going to go a little off script here. NeuroRoast is a product that I also came across during this year of 2023. They are a coffee company that's helping you optimize your brain function and overall well-being. This is another product that, to be honest with you, when I first started working with it, I was a little on the fence. I was like, do I really want to have mushrooms in my coffee? Well, folks, I will tell you, when I use NeuroRoast, one of the things that has stood out to me the most is I'll back up. People that know me know that I have way too much caffeine, typically. One of the things this year I've done a good job of is cutting out alcohol. Not completely, but predominantly, I don't touch a lot of alcohol anymore. What I think I've actually done the other way, though, is add a lot more caffeine. So I do definitely drink too much caffeine. That's something I need to work on next year, is to try to minimize how much of that. But NeuroRoast is something that has actually helped me. Because of the way they've formulated their coffee, like unlike regular coffee, which is, still something I consume, but NeuroRoast specifically doesn't cause jitters or crashes. Mushroom coffee provides more balance and sustained energy, allowing you to stay focused and productive throughout the day. So the times I do use NeuroRoast, I'll be honest, I just don't feel that jittery, like, I'm jumping out of my chair or standing here at my desk, jumping around feeling. So give NeuroRoast a try. They have some really good flavors. I'll be honest too, the two guys that started NeuroRoast are just really good dudes based out of New York, and they're hustling, and hopefully they can get some people to try NeuroRoast this holiday season by listening to this podcast. So for you folks who've been on the fence, I'm telling you, it tastes delicious. They've done a fantastic job of making this coffee not only be functional, but taste fantastic. And if you want to try NeuroRoast, you can use code ShaneWhite. So it's super simple, just ShaneWhite at checkout. you'll also get 30% off. So if you go to neuroroast.com, and once again, I have added that to the show notes. So just click into the show notes while you're listening to this episode. You can click on NeuroRoast link directly. Don't forget to use code just Shane White, and you'll get 30% off your order. Hope you guys love both these products. I'm trying to not only bring you guys products that I use, but that I believe in on the podcast. I'm not taking ad reads for any brands that I don't really believe in. So anyway, hope you guys love both those products, yourroutine.com and neuroroast.com. I've added those links to the show notes. I hope you guys love it. And I got an awesome guest coming up right after this. All right, everybody. Welcome to another episode of The Shane White Show. This one's been a long time coming, and I just told Nico before I hit record, less around like trying to get this thing scheduled. That's sometimes an issue. This one was just more of I've seen your stuff forever, man, and I'm pumped to have you on here. And you're a fellow e-com guy, and you started your own agency, and you've been at a very, what people will hear in a second, a very well-known CPG brand. So I was just pumped to have you on, man. This is going to be a fun one. I haven't had a lot of like true e-com folks on the podcast. So Nico Gloazzo, thank you for joining the podcast, man. How are you?
Yeah, right on, Shan. Great to see you and great to be here. Thanks. I'm good. I'm great. Here in Italy, it's kind of hot right now, but feeling good.
What? Yeah, I was gonna say, where in Italy are you? We didn't hit on that part.
Oh yeah. Right now I moved. So I used to live in Florence, but now I moved like up north between Venice and Verona. But I often go to Texas, Austin, like 2, 3 times a year when I spend where I spend basically 2, 3 months every time. I basically try to avoid summer in Austin. That's what I'm trying to do.
Yeah, that seems like a good move. Because how hot is it? It gets crazy hot in Austin, right? I don't
Yeah,
even know the
very,
exact
very hot.
temperature, but I know it's insane.
Yeah, above 100 degrees every time, so it's kind of very hot. It's
Yeah.
insane.
And this is funny too. I told you I'd never been to Texas somehow. I've traveled all over, never been to Texas. I've also never been to Italy. It's on me and my wife's bucket list. I've
Oh,
just never been. So you're definitely going to be the go-to. I ask now. If before we jump in, where would be like if you were to go on a trip to Italy? What's like the absolute must-see
mm.
city? Because I know there's a ton of
So
different things.
yeah, so I definitely think Florence and Tuscany is a must see. I would go there during spring, max maybe June, July, whenever August is getting too hot. But definitely like Florence, in my opinion, all the Tuscany area, if you like, winery, do some oil tasting, etc. I think is one of the best region within Italy. But then if you're like more a beach, looking for like sea or the seaside, I would go to Sardinia probably.
Okay.
It's really, really nice, or Sicily as well. So potentially a nice, trip could be like Florence for like Tuscany for like a week, and then another week on the sea, on the coast in Sardinia or Sicily.
Love it. Okay. All right. We'll have a whole nother combo about this because I need to plan this. For everyone listening who doesn't know who you are, Nico, the high level, and we'll dive into both of them, but you've been running ecom, and correct me where I'm wrong here. You've been running ecom for the foreseeable past at Kettle and Fire, which for everyone who's listening, if you're in the CPG space, you obviously know what Kettle and Fire is, but I would call it like the healthiest, better for you version of bone broth out there. Very well known across specialty retail, ecom across the board. And then you've also started two different agencies, right? Or at least one that's got two different components around retail media. And so you've been at the forefront of ecom basically as long as I have. So for everyone listening, did I miss anything? Would you mind giving a little overview of kind of like
Yeah,
your story here at Kettle and Fire, and then starting your own agency?
yeah, for sure. I'm definitely like a hustler, so I don't have much social life for that reason, I guess.
You and me both. We
um,
we become friends.
Yeah, and but yeah, long story short, when I was in Amsterdam back when it was like 6 years ago, I studied in Amsterdam. I was working there for Nike, and then I joined Kettle and Fire as a freelancer. Doing like a little bit of A/B testing on the DTC side because it was mostly DTC back then, so like around 6 years ago. And then from there, from A/B testing, to managing the DTC Shopify ecosystem, then I joined full time, managing like Amazon as well as like the development agency within the ecosystem, within the Kettle and Fire. And then from there, because the business started to expand more, within the retailer space, and majority of the growth for majority of the CPG brand is coming from retail, as you probably know. So that's where then for the past 2, 3 years, my focus has been only focusing on around the retail media strategy, omnichannel, etc. So official title is Senior Director of Media and Omnichannel, and basically I oversee everything that is like DTC, Amazon, and online, offline, omnichannel, retail media space. And in the meantime, I definitely love Kettle and Fire because it has like a very entrepreneurship type of mentality. People there really work hard, and I've seen an opportunity when it was like so a couple of years ago, I launched on the side a small development agency, right? So that's small agency, launch it, doing like a few client, and that's it.
And
All
was
around
that?
Shopify.
Okay, sorry, I was gonna say it was Shopify mainly, right?
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
all the ideas came from because I got into the Shopify ecosystem through Kettle and Fire as well, and then my brain starts spinning, thinking, hey, maybe I can launch something like that for the sorry, not something like that, like Kettle and Fire. I meant like something like within the development ecosystem for Shopify, for the Italian market
Yeah.
specifically.
Sure. Okay.
And when was it, like 3, 4 years ago, from an SEO standpoint, when there was no ChatGPT, SEO was still a thing, and so I started to blog about Shopify in Italian, and then my site started to got some traction, and I got a few clients on the into the development side, and yeah, so that went pretty well, but kind of remained flat, I'd say, year over year. So that's why, like, recently I'm probably gonna sell that part of the business and
Good for
focus.
you.
Yeah, yeah, it's interesting ecosystem. So finger crossed. Let's see how it's gonna go. But
Yeah. Yeah.
probably, a bigger agency is gonna take over because also I don't have the time, let's say, to focus on that piece as much. And then the beginning of last year, launch a separate service, separate agency as well, but all around like retail media because I've seen, exploding this type of environment, and that's also where I'm focusing the most of my time, within Cat and Fire. So also my skill set kind of start to narrow within the retail media ecosystem,
Yeah. Sure.
and so I've seen an opportunity there, starting with like small consultancy, and then from there I said, okay, looks like there's a need for an agency and someone to support other smaller brand for around all around retail media, so Instacart, Kroger, Walmart Connect, etc. So launched that one at the beginning of last year, which has been growing really well. And yeah, so I keep myself busy now, with Captain and Fire, the agency as well. Love, basically, don't I don't sleep much, but love working hard.
It's funny. I feel you on that one. It's hard. This is something that I don't know if people who don't spend all of their time on ecom fully understand. Maybe they do at a distance, but it just doesn't turn off. The stores don't close. There's no holidays. Ecom's on 24/7, 365. And I do tell people that because that means problems pop up, good things pop up, bad. It just there's always something to handle, right? And so it is a slog. I know it's really funny, Nico, that you mentioned that. I have definitely gone into like less sleep, less sleep, less sleep, less sleep. We also have I have 2 kids under 2 and a third on the way, so like that on top of it. And then recently I can't say the other way, but I've been going really deep on like Matthew Walker's stuff. I don't know if you know who he is. He wrote a book of like why we sleep. And I've been
Okay.
it's freaking me out. I'm like, oh, I can see how ecom guys like us, it's easy to just sleep less and think you're getting more done. Anyway, long story short, I've started to like rethink. I'm like, shit, maybe I need to get more sleep because I'm heading in a direction of just not getting sleep anymore because there's so much shit to do. Um,
I agree. And sometimes I kind of, I wish I was one of those people that can sleep 3 hours a night and still feel good,
sure.
But
Yeah.
if in theory, I could sleep like 8 hours and feel good. That's usually what I need, but I sleep less because I just need, you know, I have a lot of stuff to do. But definitely sometimes I'm like, oh, when I hear those guys that, went to bed at 3 a.m. and wake up at 6 and they are like, oh, I
And they're
feel
fine.
great. Yeah, I like, I wish I could be you, in
I
that
know.
case.
Yeah. You're like, think how much more I could get done if I was productive when I'm exhausted on 3 hours of sleep. I think for most people, it doesn't work very well. But
Yeah, unfortunately, it doesn't.
what's it been like? 'Cause you're over in Italy, obviously. So what's it been like? Has it been a seamless transition to like work on a U.S. based business like Kettle and Fire and an agency? And I don't know if your clients are. I'm sure they're all over
All,
the place.
yeah, all US based. So I only work with US based clients, but so definitely Kettle and Fire. I usually I think that being Europe is an advantage from like a time standpoint because usually I cover like let's say Eastern time zone,
Mm-hmm.
but then I have my morning that is kind of free where potentially I can go, to my inbox, do inbox zero, and then potentially also like manage some of my agency stuff in the morning. And then around like noon start, for Kettle and Fire from like a working, let's say, hourly standpoint until like 9, 10, etc. So
Wow.
that's
Okay.
why I was saying at the beginning, I don't have much social life. I'm not the type of person that, my friends say, hey, Nico, you want to go out for dinner tonight in the middle of the week? Most of the time I say no because I need to stay home working.
Yeah.
But that's fine, I'd say for now. But that's the advantage in Europe that they can somehow, in the morning do a lot of some deep work stuff, and then in the afternoon they have a lot of calls, etc. or
That's a
Slack.
good point. Yeah, because you kind of get like half of a day where everyone's sleeping, right?
Yeah, exactly. So
Good for
that's
you.
great to kind of go through the inbox and do a lot of like stuff that you maybe sometimes postpone it. Meanwhile, when I'm in Austin, it's a little bit more difficult, because I need just to do like, some stuff during the evening.
Well, yeah, you probably have
I just,
calls late at night too, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah, like if someone has like a 5 o'clock call here in the U.S., that's late for you.
Yeah, exactly. So, and now I'm going to Japan next week for holiday, just 10 days, but
Okay,
I don't
fun.
feel like I'm going to be able to have those holidays, let's say, or, take time off. Most likely I'm going to be on because I like to be on most of the time because I don't like to, you know, completely disconnect, wait 10 days, and after 10 days, see like my inbox, with thousands of emails.
Yeah,
So I'm gonna be most of the time online, but just not taking calls. So
sure.
for me, that's kind of a vacation that I don't mind to have,
Right.
more than
Yeah, it's
enough.
amazing, honestly, though, how much you can get done when you just don't have calls. I've thought about that a lot.
Exactly.
Like the days where you just like put calls on hold, you hammer through so much work. Um,
Yeah.
I know
And
for
something that
email.
I was
Sorry, go for it. Go for it.
I was like something as well that I was thinking these days that I wanted to, write on a LinkedIn post about that, but then I was like, oh, maybe it's too harsh. So when I look to hire people, something that I've been thinking about is like I have like how to communicate with me type of doc that I send
Okay.
out to those people so they know my communication style and my expectations. So sometimes I'm also like, I expect you to be always on, but the reality is that I don't expect you to be always on. Is more to scare people away that they those people that says completely no, okay, they're not a good fit. Those people that says yes, I think we can have a conversation. So what I usually say is like, I really don't expect you to always be, online, but if I send a Slack message or an email, like for me, it's just important if you say, hey, so that I'm gonna reply tomorrow or gonna get down, in a few days, more than enough. Like that type of constant feedback loop for me is important more than, you disappear for a full day. I have no idea if you're doing that work or not. So that's why sometimes I'm like, I expect you to be always on. And I like those type of people sometimes.
I get that. Yeah, yeah, yeah. You know, it's funny. We try. That's like with the work we do with our agency. We try. That's like what I would call like probably our most important feature. I'll call it is we at least do that. Like we always try to like respond like as fast as humanly possible. And if it's something that's going to take time to pull together, it's an analysis or whatever, we'll tell you. It's we'll get back to you ASAP on this, but we see it and we handled it. It is funny, right? Like even just telling people, hey, I saw this, I'm handling it, is way different than the people who don't respond. And then they do respond 2 days later with the answer, but it just feels like you're like, well, maybe I needed, like, I don't know. We might have gotten
100%.
part of that answer and pivoted before you even responded. It just moves too slow.
100%, totally agree. Yeah, I have a couple of vendors that I work with Kettle and I love the fact that sometimes they just reply back and say, hey, so that gonna get back to you. Gonna take some time to think about it and get back to you within the next few days. Love
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. I don't know. Maybe that's just like an e-com thing too. I don't know if you
Mm,
feel this. Like, I feel like with retail
maybe.
partners or with people who deal with mainly retail, I think they're used to dealing with buyers who maybe don't get back to them
Yeah, for
very
sure.
quickly. But then when e-com, it's like everything's happening so fast. Even like,
Mhm.
this, Instacart or Amazon or just running ads, like you get feedback so quick, like not necessarily meaningful enough to make major decisions, but you start to get the ball rolling within a day or so, and you start to see if it's even working or live. So I've always wondered if like the e-com community, we're just so used to getting feedback immediately because the platforms we work with, we get the data right back in our face right away. Then I've
Yeah.
always wondered if that's part of it. It's like we're just used to getting stuff immediately. We hate waiting, for people to get back to us.
Yeah, especially like the retail ecosystem is a little bit like older ecosystem, right? So
Hmm.
that's probably also why, right? Like maybe people are not used to Slack as a communication tool, or so the same concept apply to emails, right? So they're gonna reply within a few days, even weeks or month. Meanwhile, us that we always communicate via Slack, then also via email. Sometimes I expect that treat email as Slack most of the time. So
Sure.
yeah.
Yeah, actually, it's funny too. I don't know if I told you this on LinkedIn. I have actually even reached out to LinkedIn I can't figure it out. This is the funniest thing, Nico. And I'm like, I like to think I'm very tech savvy. I I cannot get notifications for messages from LinkedIn on my phone. Like I've tried everything. I've like reset it, deleted it. I've done everything up and down the street. I've gone on like ChatGPT, everything, and I can never get it. So I always tell people I'm sorry if I don't respond very quick on LinkedIn. It's because I just don't see it. Like I have to go to my laptop and go in, or on my phone. Isn't that crazy?
Oh, man.
But it slows things down, you know. It's like I especially on LinkedIn. I feel like when you, especially for like the podcast, if I get someone that's like interested, I'm like, oh, I want to get you on, you know, this week or next week.
Yeah, it's annoying. I feel you.
Yeah. So anyway, let's get into some of your story, because there's so much I want to dive into. The first thing, Nico, I think let's start with for sure is Kettle and Fire. So what attracted you to Kettle and Fire in the beginning, and obviously when you joined, and correct me if I'm wrong, but looking at the dates, Kettle and Fire wasn't really quote unquote Kettle and Fire quite yet when you joined. Like you were definitely there early on. So could you give everyone just that's listening, you know, we have a lot of CPG folks that listen to the podcast. So could you give everyone just a little bit of a, call it like day one of deciding to join Kettle and Fire, if you can remember back to that, what it was like, why you decided to join?
Yeah, so it was 6.5 years ago, almost 7. It's a long time in CPG to stick around, I think,
Yeah.
for a
Yeah. Hell
company.
yeah.
So that's very good. Actually, a lot of people within Kettle and Fire, funny enough, they've been there for a long time, like 4+ years. And I feel like that's one of the reasons why the company is so good. But anyway, going back to the topic. So I joined, yes, almost 7 years ago. And back then I was living in Amsterdam. I was like, doing an internship at Nike, the EMEA headquarter in Amsterdam. And then Wilson back then was like head of marketing, head of growth at Kettle and Fire. Reach out to Upwork, a
Oh,
platform
wow.
for
Yeah.
finding freelancer. Yeah. So I was doing some side gig back then as well while I was doing my internship. Then Wilson reached out and was like, yeah, we need someone that help us with A/B testing, BWO, running BWO tests, because 7 years ago, Kettle and Fire was, I'd say, 99% DTC,
Okay.
right? So it was
Sure.
like we were always optimizing our product pages, landing pages, long form video sales letter, all of that click funnel type of stuff. And so he was looking for someone to run A/B testing, purely A/B testing. So I joined as a freelancer a few hours a week. Then from a few hours a week became like, hey, 10 hours a week, then 20 hours a week part time. And then my internship was almost at the end. I had to choose between like, hey, do I want to join Nike full time, or do I want to join Kettle and Fire full time? Because Wilson then asked me, hey, what do you think? Do you want to join full time? Right here, there is an opportunity to grow, and for now starting as managing just the DTC side as an e-commerce manager, or that could be an option. So because I wasn't ready to, let's say, stay within a company that move a little bit slower, like a big corporate, sometimes they move a little bit slower, there's more red tape. I said, yeah, sure, let's join. So I joined full-time Kettle and Fire back then as like e-commerce manager.
Okay.
And at that time, like I said, DTC focus, we were doing like a lot of A/B testing, running like performance. We were spending shit tons of money on Facebook.
Oh yeah.
Was before any sort of
What year was this?
changes.
This would have
I
been
think,
what, 2018, 19?
yes, I think so. Yeah, 2018, 2019.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
right before COVID.
Yeah.
So right before COVID, joined there. Yeah, it was like getting so much traction on DTC was exciting. Then we started to expand on Amazon because it was the next channel, right? And in the meantime, we were putting our first foot into the retail ecosystem, starting within the natural channel and then expanding. What's interesting is like then COVID hit, and like a lot of CPG food and beverage brands, we've seen spike in sales every time,
Yeah.
everywhere.
Oh yeah.
We run a bunch of advertisement to stock up during during that moment of the year. So we ran out of stock pretty much everywhere from DTC and Amazon, and even on shelf, because back then I think we were on a few retailers, or at least in a few doors. But then after COVID, the retail momentum still really start to kick in, so the company started to grow.
Yeah,
And
you
I
guys,
should
I
have
mean,
said this.
that was kind of probably a really pivotal time. It's funny, tell me if I'm wrong here. This is just my observation. Bone broth was probably one of those things that through COVID, people just wanting to try to figure out how to be healthier. I almost feel like you guys might have benefited from just the like shopping behaviors back then, even because it was interesting. Like at the exact same time that you said you guys saw retail growth, that was when at our X bar we actually saw like quite a plummet. Because people just weren't on the
Interesting.
go. People weren't on the go as much, right? So like
True,
the
yeah.
need for a protein bar that whole use case of, you know, the busy mom going from Pilates to work or picking up the you know what I mean, just like it was gone during COVID. And so it's interesting, you guys probably had a big uptick too because people were home, and I would assume, you tell me, most people consume bone broth at home.
Yeah, exactly.
So
They do, and they use it for cooking most of the time, right? But then what we notice is like, because we position it as a premium product, right? In the market, there's, 6 years ago, there was nothing like us, and still probably there's not. But basically, we position ourselves as premium product, premium price point, and we didn't even increase our price point. So meanwhile, a lot of brands after COVID increase also their price points. So our gap with some of those products kind of shrink, and we
yeah,
became a little bit more affordable. But then the trends start to kick in around, hey, leveraging bone broth as a source of protein, as a because no one kind of knew. I feel like that no one knew about the amount of protein that you can get from like a carton of bone broth. You can get almost 20 grams of protein just by using that, and
it's
sometimes you can
crazy.
cook rice with that, which so you mix everything together,
Yeah.
right? So you get the
I
benefit of
honestly,
of the protein.
I remember around that time, Nico. I remember starting to learn a little bit about you guys, and I remember like even hearing you guys for the first time when I know Sam jumped in to like invest, and I had no idea. Funny enough, like even being at our X bar, I like really didn't know a whole lot about bone broth or how that worked, and so that's got to be that must have been like some wild momentum because it's interesting, right? When you guys were at that point, that category was super stale, right? Like there just really wasn't there wasn't really any brands that were trying to crack into it at all.
Yeah. And and to be honest, it's kind of a boring category if you think about it, right? Like it's in the soup aisle,
Sure,
so
yeah,
it's not really an exciting like RX bar, you can where you can conquer, like gyms, like CrossFit gym, and then do
sure.
a lot
It's
of
harder to
stuff
like
around it.
show up at a gym with bone broth and be like, check this
Yeah,
out. Yeah, that's
yeah,
true.
warm it up now and
Yeah, I feel like
check
you
it out.
could
But
now. I feel like now that's totally on brand.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, actually, we did a partnership with the UFC last year, so
Oh,
that's
did
a
you
totally,
really?
yeah, that's a
Oh, shit,
totally
I didn't
different
know
story.
that. Cool.
And but yeah, no, so what we noticed, like this health trend kind of changed after COVID, and I guess so. We always invested heavily also into from a advertisement standpoint, but also like top of the funnel with influencer as well. And I feel like that will start to kind of spin after COVID, and we kind of start to saw this type of momentum within the health and wellness space, where a lot of people and influencer were using bone broth as a way to get their source of protein basically daily. So you or even fasting, fasting became a thing. So people were fasting, but then having bone broth because it's just liquid, so you don't need it but you still get some
Yeah.
sort of like nutritional benefit out of that.
Smart. Yeah, I forgot you guys hit. It's so funny sometimes when you like really break down the timelines of brands. Fasting that like exploded right around that time too, didn't it?
hmm Yeah, and last year, or yeah, almost 2 years ago now, Dana White from the UFC, he made like an organic post about Kettle and Fire, about how he was using during his fasting routine Kettle and Fire as a bone broth, for to get his daily source of protein. And that post really kind of drove a lot of attention across the board. And that's the moment when we said, okay, maybe let's try to explore a partnership with the UFC the following year because we wanted to tap into a different audience, because we always thought that female audience was our target, 35 plus, etc.
Mm-hmm.
But then when this happened and we said, okay, let's try to pivot a little bit from our core audience and tap into different audience so that we can see what's going to happen.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah, and then what did that look like when you started doing things with the UFC? Did you see from an e-commerce perspective? Did you see like an immediate impact on like even branded search volume? Did it
Yeah.
help?
So yeah, definitely. Like overall, what we are noticing is like the good thing is that our brand awareness keep growing over time, which was our goal, as well as our household penetration keep growing.
Sure.
So that was our goal, and we noticed that was happening as well with those type of partnership. I feel like that those type of partnership really unlock opportunities for us to even create different like messaging, different creatives as well from a design standpoint. So we ran, a billboard in LA with Dustin Poirier, for example. We lock in a partnership with him. So that's all like content that, in my opinion, is just going to strengthen the messaging to
Yeah.
the potential user, even if this user and this potential customer are a male demographic, but even like a female demographic. So showing that how our product can fit within different like persona as well as different like moment during the day or different routine. There is an interesting video from Dustin Poirier that he's drinking like bone broth right after a gym, right?
Oh,
Straight from
wow. Yeah.
the carton. So that's a totally different use case, than warm it up at home or cooking for that. And that's a type of target that we are always looking for because you are tapping to a different audience as well.
When Dustin did that video, was that also the kind of the same way that Dana White was drinking it, or was he cooking with? It's just interesting because like that's from a marketing perspective, if you could obviously get people to drink it right out of the carton, hell yeah. I mean, then it's like branded material versus cooking it at home. I've always wondered that
Yeah.
for you guys, like how that marketing worked.
Yeah, it depends. We did like a lot of paid partnership with Dustin, of course, like was a long-term partnership with him. So some of those videos were more organic, some of those videos were more like, hey, let's discuss about how we can integrate like bone broth. But every time, what's important for us every time is like making sure that that's completely like something that fits you as a person, right? So if you're not drinking that straight from the carton, there's no point for you to make a video about that. But because I know that you're doing actually that anyway, I think it's a great use case. So it would be great to see a video about that.
Sure. Okay. No, that's really, really cool. Did you, at this point, so were you in the early days when it came to, obviously you jumped into D2C and Shopify. Do that all the time.
Yeah, like
Amazon.
myself, I do with Instacart and Instagram sometimes. So
Yeah, exactly. They're so close. It's almost interchangeable. Then with, launching on Amazon and then across other digital media, what was it like in the early days for you? It's funny, you were building Kettle and Fire, like Amazon, for example, right around when I was at RX Bar doing the same thing. So it's kind of cool. I wish we would have known each other back then. We probably could have shared some tips and tricks. What's it been like for you? It's so cool because you've been doing this kind of the same time frame that I have. What's the transition been like for you? Because you've been at Kettle and Fire this whole time, so you've probably seen such a transformation of what the brand can do and even the capabilities on some of these platforms. I don't know if you can touch on that quickly, but like what, for example, let's just hit on Amazon because that's where I live most of the time. What's it been like at Kettle and Fire from those early days in 2018 when you were just trying to stand it up and get the ball rolling to all the way to today? Is it like just a totally different beast behind the scenes and the engine that's running it?
yeah, so I think Amazon could be much much bigger, but we had of course like some inventory challenges, supply chain over the time, right? When demand is so high, then that go over your forecasted
Sure.
demand.
It's
So
like
you need to kind of make some adjustment and prioritize like retail, like in that case versus Amazon. But like overall, over those past 6 years, I feel like that what I noticed is that at the beginning it was really really hard to kind of the conversion rate wasn't that high. It was really hard sometimes to stand out, right? You were trying to build those number of reviews. You were trying, to optimize, do a lot of A/B testing, to do a lot of optimization when it comes to Amazon. But now I feel like that sometimes even if we had advertisement off, we still make like pretty good daily sales even with ads off because we have so many reviews. We built like a brand over time that stand out there. So when people are searching for bone broth, most of the time they're searching for like Kettle and Fire. So
right.
what I noticed that at the beginning is like always a challenge. And if I had to go back in time, probably I would have started investing in brand awareness if of course we had the funds to do that, and we wanted to go heavily on brand awareness, but early on or as soon as possible because I can really see the effect of that brand awareness has on like the long term performance of the brand. And I noticed that right now, like in this example that I just gave you, is that we are still making sales out of Amazon, sometimes even with advertisement completely off.
That's really interesting because I would agree. You guys are one of those brands where I call it like the Kleenex effect. So essentially what you guys did is you took a category that was boring and stale, you launched an awesome brand, you built brand awareness, and now most people probably don't think to look for bone broth. They just default to, oh, I'm just going to look for Kettle and Fire, right? It's the same thing with Liquid IV. With a lot of hydration search term volume, you see people just default to Liquid IV. That's like their entry into the category if you don't really like think about looking into the category for different brands. You guys have definitely done that with bone broth, which, bravo. That's like, if you can pull that off, that's huge.
Yeah, I think it's a great. It's like right now, what I'm seeing is like we have a lot of momentum, so it's really really exciting time for us as a brand, and yeah, we can't wait even for Q4, Q1, etc., which is going to be like the biggest time of the year for, of course, for the category, but simply because we are seeing that we are growing a lot and we are seeing that people are like always associate like bone broth with kettle and fire. I'm seeing that more and more. And even if there is more competition in the industry, of course, competition within like the category, I just feel like that competition is always great because it's gonna expand. They're gonna advertise as well, so it's gonna expand the awareness around bone broth. And yeah, I think it's an exciting time.
That's awesome, man. And when you say brand awareness, to even get a little bit more specific, what are some of the levers that you wish you would have pulled earlier? Because I think this is really interesting for a lot of folks that are going to listen to this. They're either potentially working at a brand, but a lot of times they're starting a brand. So they're like at the very beginning where you were back in 2017, 2018. There's so many components to advertising, and I try to map this really well out for the brands I work with. But I think it'd be cool to hear it from you. Like, what are some of the brand awareness things you wish you would have maybe spent more on if you could have?
So yeah, if the brand that are listening are kind of small, I would definitely like invest a lot in performance, so bottom of the funnel. But unless you had like those money allocated for awareness. So if you had those money allocated for awareness, then I would say you can spend to, well, in my opinion, influencer is like still what drives a lot of awareness across the board, especially because then you can boost those type of content and generate like a lot of impressions with this content through paid advertisement, or even like investing like creating a really strong internal like content creation team, or hire, for example, like a content creator internally that can build the content over time and boost your organic your organic presence across social media. I think that's a great way to even on TikTok, right? Like you can potentially hire someone internally to build like a shit tons of content and then put everything out there, see what sticks, and then just amplify what's actually is driving result. So that's what I would do if I had the opportunity, because I don't feel like we did early on or invest a lot in organic content. For example,
Okay,
we're
sure.
very heavy, investing toward like a lot of paid advertisement, which is great, and building ad hoc content if needed, because we were still like really strong performance, right?
Right,
But if
yeah.
I had to go back in time and I say, okay, I have this budget allocated every month just to create content and etc., I would probably start on TikTok early on. I would probably start, on Instagram early on, from just creating content, because I know that 3-4 years from now or even less, then I'm gonna see a return on this like type of investment. And then ultimately, now it's interesting to see how streaming TV is evolving,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I do feel like that streaming TV is a great way to build awareness over time, and especially because now you can close the loop a little bit. Like Roku as an integration with Shopify. So in theory, you can run streaming TV and then see how many people order through TV, which is usually very limited, but still have some sort of connection between like Shopify and Roku. Or there's a bunch of other like provider that help you with this type of closed loop attribution within DTC. So definitely something that I'd start early on if I had the budget, and because now it became even more accessible for everyone,
Yeah.
right? You don't need to spend like before 75. I think when I was like testing linear, I was spending 75K a week for a specific time, right? And linear is usually expensive. You need to spend at least 75K. Meanwhile, with streaming TV, you can go a little bit more into the details, into like selecting the audience, and so spending a little bit less.
Very cool. Have you messed around with any of the TV advertising within Amazon yet?
We did when we were, advertising heavily on Amazon. Yes, we did back then. We did like do a little bit of streaming TV with Amazon,
What'd you
and it
think
was
of it? Yeah.
so I think now it's much better with AMC, right? Amazon Marketing, yeah, Amazon Marketing
Marketing
Cloud.
Cloud, yeah.
I think now it's much better. Back then was like Amazon Marketing Cloud was just out. They just put it out there. So there was like a lot of data manipulation in order to understand if someone that saw an ad on TV and then a display ad and then a sponsored product had a higher probability to convert versus someone that just see a sponsored product ad. So I do feel like that right now Amazon streaming TV is pretty powerful, especially because in my opinion, if you are a CPG brand, most likely you're going to start selling at Whole Foods as your first, retailer, within the natural channel. So you have this type of closed loop attribution with Whole Food as well. And, or at least you have this type of like impact at Whole Food to Whole Food buyers that no one has, right? So the amount
Right.
of data that Amazon has right now, it's like super high. And in my opinion, you can still, like, you should be running like streaming TV if your goal is kind of to build awareness, not only on Amazon, but also like at Whole Food.
Sure. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's been interesting. Like I've only had a couple brands like really delve into it, in the performance. Like again, just on the face performance has been really, really lackluster. But it's building brand awareness in a way that I
Mhm.
think currently it's a little hard to judge in the short term. I think it's like to your
Yeah.
point in the macro long term. I think it absolutely is. Um,
And what I want to add also, Shan, is like what I see on the like the invest the when you invest in brand awareness, you really see that, like you said, over time. So it's important to understand, hey, my search is my branded search volume on Amazon growing over time as you keep spending on streaming TV, right?
right.
Or is
Yeah.
like even on Google, like on Google Trend, am I seeing my brand growing over time from a search volume standpoint? Yes or no? So those are small indicator that you can attribute to kind of brand awareness. But otherwise, if I were like, hey, I spend 100K on streaming TV, am I getting this 100K back straight away? Probably the answer is no.
Sure. Yeah. I know. And that's, I think for younger brands who, of course, are bootstrapped, have limited budgets, that's the hardest thing is you
Hmm.
really have to focus on performance right away, but you have no brand awareness. So that's the needle I'm always trying to thread is this happy medium between we want to be, the next Kettle and Fire, for example, but we don't have that kind of budget right now. And we got to have like the dollars today need to work harder for us. I do feel like that's the magic 8 ball that all of us in e-com are always trying to crack, which is what makes it so fun because it's always changing and pivoting. Um,
Yeah, and I think that if a brand has some sort of like viral, and it's kind of easier to say that than get it done, but I'd say that if you have the opportunity to kind of run or implement some sort of like content in-house and build that awareness like completely organic, that's the best like way, right?
sure.
Like if I had the opportunity to kind of, launch a brand now and partner with an influencer, for example, right? That would be like the moment where you don't need to spend shit ton of money on streaming TV or like an awareness because you are leveraging someone else's audience to then launch your product. So that's the easy path for like early success, I'd say.
Yeah. Well, what's interesting is you bring that up and something I'd love to chat with you more on even after the podcast. One of the things we rolled out last year, end of last year, we're actually helping brands create like AI driven video content for Amazon, Instacart across the board. And it's kind of doing the same thing that what you're talking about. The goal of it is really to create a few pieces of assets, be able to pivot on them really quickly, and then 10x how many pieces of assets we have on the ones that work. And with AI, as you can imagine, you can do it at a fraction of the cost and you can do it really fast. And I think where if you're a young brand listening to this, and I feel this all the time, like it feels like the what you just said, which was so I think will be like probably one of the most important things on this podcast, is influencer marketing and social media. You tell me if you agree with this. I feel like for a lot of young brands that I get the opportunity to work with over the last few years, the social media presence is the one that actually probably it's almost like they a lot of them feel like there's so much work that needs to go into it for it to matter that they kind of skip over it and they don't spend the resources to do it. And so I'd be curious from your perspective, one of the things that I'm trying to get a lot closer to with the brands I work on is like how do we integrate platforms like Amazon, for example, with influencer marketing? So things like Levanta, or just like in-house influencer marketing campaigns. Is that stuff that you think about a lot with your agency and Kettle and Fire? And like, have you worked with platforms like Levanta, for example, or any of those out there that, try to
Yeah,
drive
I
this
work
for you?
Yeah, I work with a couple of platforms actually, and then we have, internally at Kettle and Fire, we have like three people around like partnerships. One
Yeah,
of them also
nice.
has his own, let's say, little like influencer agency
I
as
know,
well.
I'm starting to see a theme at Kettle and Fire. I love it.
Yeah,
You guys are like learning there, helping the brand grow, and then starting your little agencies. That's great.
yeah, that's why I love the culture there. And so something that actually we were chatting about the other day, and with this guy's name is Nick. He was like, "Yeah, I wish there was like a way to find influencer much easier, and then make sure that push those like give this influencer, for example, an Instacart link or Amazon link or Walmart link, so that we can track conversion back." Because the match, the match between like influencer from an awareness standpoint and then the conversion now is getting a little bit more blurry, right? Like
Sure.
it's hard to
Yeah.
track right now. Of course, if you're DTC only, there was like a swipe up. There's a lot of like what's the name, Green, all of those platforms that allow you to kind of track find the influencer and then do product seeding and then provide the link, etc. But as a brand become more omni-channel, it gets harder and harder to kind of track and understand the performance of those influencers if you're looking for performance only. So that's something that we've been thinking about a lot. Is like how can we make those influencers that we are leveraging, those partnerships that right now are more like top of the funnel, more awareness focus.
Hmm.
How can we close the loop and see what they are driving in store? Even if it's not like a 5x for us, but even if it's like 0.5, at least we can attribute some sort of revenue to
Yeah.
every single influencer activation. So yeah, that's definitely something we're thinking about. It. There's no platform out there. It's kind of get a lot of there's a lot of noise, I'd say, in the market, right?
Yeah.
Because when you think about only DTC, I think it was much easier in that sense, right? Like I was saying, there's the links, there's landing page, you can track stuff.
Right.
But then when you think about brands that are expanding to retail or like more omnichannel, it gets harder and harder to define the impact of like activation online, like influencer or partnership to support the brand needs and goal.
Yeah, I would agree. And it even knowing some small influencers, it's been interesting to see the other side of the coin. Whereas, like, so if you think about TikTok Shop, Levanta, any of these platforms, when you try to reach out, it's almost like you're just screaming into the void at these influencers because every brand is doing the exact same thing every day. And so, like, some of the influencers that I've been friends with have shown me, like, here, look at my inbox just today, and they can't scroll to the bottom of the amount of
Gosh.
brands that reach out. And I think what that goes to show, though, is like that's not the right way to try to really build an influencer marketing strategy, right? The brands that I know that are doing it really well, they're figuring out a way to connect with these influencers one on one, like outside of the platforms, build a connection, start a partnership, and then go into the platform maybe and make the
Yeah.
connection. Because you already talked to them, you already figured it out. So I think that is something that I think you're right. Like it seems like like all of the brands personally that are really, really taking off in the last, call it 18 months to 2 years that I'm close with, they all have some sort of influencer social media strategy that's part of like their everyday, and they're just putting out content constantly. So I think you nailed something there for sure.
Yeah, and internally, the way that we approach that is exactly like you said. Yes, we have made for smaller influencers a lot of automation, but like I definitely agree that you need to build this type of like relationship with them. So that's why we have three people internally to kind of talk to those people, brief them, provide the script, the brief, all
Hmm.
the details about what about the brand, etc., and building like long-term relationship rather than doing like a lot of automation. You can do that, with smaller influencer, a lot of seeding, etc., and then see if someone maybe even posts organically. But if you want to go after even like bigger influencers, sometimes it's never through like those type of apps. You can use the apps to understand their performance, right? Like how is the engagement rate, etc., to get a sense about hey, where is their audience coming from? Is everyone based in the US or not? So to get a sense about that, but then the connection need to happen not offline, but indirectly.
Yeah, I would totally agree, man. That makes a ton of sense. Very, very cool. So I know we only got 11 minutes here. I want to pivot a little bit to your agency side of things. It's very, very cool that you were able to spin that out and start that. I want to dive right in because obviously, like, I run an agency and it focus mainly on Amazon. And so I think there's probably a lot of things that, we both deal with in a given day, a given week, in a month. But what's it been like? I guess before we even dive into the weeds, I would love to ask, what's that leap been like for you to kind of go out and start an agency while you're building a brand? I always think it's a heroic thing to like jump and try to like kind of put your face out there as the front of a business, and you've done that. So for everyone
Yeah.
listening, I'd love to just hear how it's been going and what your thoughts have been so far since you did it.
Yeah, for sure. First of all, it's not like a huge agency, Of course, like it's not like $10 million agency, so it will be totally different like topic and moment, I'd say, to discuss about that. So again, very small agency, but like so one was like the development agency, right? The one that I'm trying to sell basically, and most likely it's gonna get finalized by the end of the month. Pretty small agency where that is focusing on like the development side of Shopify specifically. For the majority are like Italian client
And
because
this
I've seen
is
the company.
Cubrico, is that
Yeah,
right? Yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
exactly. And then and that side of the agency, the idea came simply because I was like getting more into the weeds of Shopify, right? And then when I was in Amsterdam, I was like going to meetups about like conversion rate optimization, etc. And then I met this girl that she used to work at Shopify, and she was like, "Hey, Nico, we don't have anyone in Italy. I was living in Amsterdam back then, but she said we have no one in Italy that knows much about Shopify. We feel like it's gonna, pick it up in the next few years. You should maybe create some content around that, and we are happy to support." And then what happened was like, I said, okay, maybe let's do a few meetups in Italy, right? So I organized a few
Oh,
meetups,
cool.
and then they invited me to do a course. Do you remember that on the Shopify there was a Shopify Academy
Oh
sometime?
yeah, I
Like,
remember that. Yeah.
okay, so and they invited me to do a course there as well, right? So it
Good for
was
you,
like
dude. That's awesome.
there was a bunch of people there, like Tim Ferriss, then what's the other guy? Ed, Firestone,
Oh,
Edra,
wow. Yeah.
that guy. Yeah, there was like a lot of video courses from Shopify. And so I did a small, super small, like how long is it? Like 30 minutes video course about how to improve revenue with Shopify, stuff like that. And then yeah, then I did a few Shopify project. A lot of clients stay right on a retainer from a development standpoint. I hired really good people. Then now they're managing those clients directly. So I'm not really involved there as much. And yeah, so that's the reason why I also said, okay, I wanna make sure that the people that are working there have the support they need, right? Because they cannot focus as much within that agency. So I found this like other agency that is interested in like acquiring that piece, and so that was the plan. But then at the beginning of last year, meanwhile, jumping into the second agency, which started as a spin-off of the same agency, right? At the beginning, just I wanted to validate the concept and see. So a few brands, I started to chat with a few brands, and a few brands were like, "Hey, we are starting on Instacart. Can you do any consultancy here? Can you help us out to figure it out, right?" And so I was like, yeah, sure, let's do a couple of hours just to discuss how I can help you out, right? But
Yeah.
then one brand became two brands, then became three brands, then became four brands. I was like, okay, I really need help here.
Yeah.
I
You're like, I
can't
got something
do
here.
this.
This is working.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So I was like, okay, I'm definitely like, I know that I work like 12, 13 hours a day, but I can't work more, right? Like my body can't sustain that level. So I was like, okay, let's start an agency. And so at the beginning of last year, then I said, okay, let's make this official. So I launched like this spin-off, this separate agency that support like CPG brand in the US to run retail media across the board.
And
Right
this is
now,
QBR Media.
exactly, yeah.
Nice. Okay.
And
Cool.
I kept like the same name because I wanted to keep the
Yeah, I
same
like it.
name sometimes,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
like
Good
kind of
branding.
similar name. Yeah, similar name. And then I was like, because for me, like the name, I don't think about that stuff as much. I'm not a branding person as well. So I'm like, let's make the fastest thing that I can think of. And that maybe doesn't require much me to create a new email, new this, new that. Like I get crazy sometimes when I think about that. So I was like, I just want to work. Yeah, started out. So I hired really good people as well there that are helping me out. And yeah, it's going well. It's growing. I definitely feel like that the retail media space is kind of growing a lot right now.
Yeah, I would
So
agree.
expanding services from not only like retail media on site, like sponsored product on Instacart, Walmart, Connect, Kroger, but also display ads. But then on top of that, leveraging platform like Trade Desk to run, for example, streaming TV with Walmart data, streaming TV with Instacart data. I think is going to be really the next milestone here because you can provide brand with an extra level of services that
Sure. Yeah.
extend outside of on-platform advertisement to off-platform advertisement. And it's been fun keeping myself busy a lot.
Yeah.
And then what I really like is that this gives me also the opportunity to see how other brands are operating within the retail media ecosystem, but not only that, but also within the sales part, or how are they thinking about budget? How are they thinking about, are they doing something new on Walmart, right? And
Right.
this
Yeah.
allow
Yeah.
me
Yeah.
to take that idea and bring it somewhere else, right? Or bring it like together and fire too. Because I think, especially when you work with non-competing brand and you can share those type of ideas, or me being like the main point of contact, let's say that way, it's really a great way. And you probably see that as well on your side with Amazon's like, hey, I test this on this client, it's performing really well. Let's implement this to this other one. I think it's really like a winning strategy overall for everyone.
Yeah, it's funny. We always say, we focus similar areas. So like we focus on better for you food and beverage brands mainly, but we've expanded outside of that. And I always say it's interesting. Like you can work with one brand and there's like a little thing that happens in any platform. And it's not like a specific thing. Like we do a really good job of making sure, we keep everything siloed, like every brand, right? However, like there's macro things that we start to see trends on. For example, like what over the last 5 years, we have this immense amount of data from every brand we've worked with on Prime Day. At this point, it's like we basically have a really strong playbook and indication of like, hey, these things work, these things don't. And so it's kind of cool. I always say like working with an agency sometimes, if you work with a good one, you work with good people who really work their ass off, you can start to actually like syndicate best practices because we've just been doing it for so long, right? You're kind of in the same boat. It sounds like you've just been doing it. You've been in the weeds for so long that you start to
Yeah,
really get not only like a belief, but like you have actual data to back up processes and the right and wrong way to do anything for big events. For
exactly.
just one example, right?
Or even for budgeting and forecasting, that's a recurring theme when it comes to especially to retail media, right? Sometimes it's really hard to forecast or budget, right? How much should I
For sure.
spend here on this platform? It's hard because sometimes on Amazon, like you can leverage like those third party tools, right? That they tell you, hey, this brand is selling X, so okay, if I'm gonna launch with this amount of money, estimating this conversion rate, I can do Y. And also because when you ship to Amazon, you ship to the Amazon warehouse, so you're gonna be nationwide from day one. Meanwhile, within retailer, maybe you start at Walmart with like 400 doors, then you're going to expand to 600 doors. So it's really really hard to kind of predict how much revenue as well as what the budget could look like. So having this type of knowledge, I think it's important, or even see like a pattern between clients. Hey, this is how much they are investing, right, as a percentage, maybe even of revenue, or with other strategy. We are launching 10 product within like 600 doors. This is how much we are predicting. I think it's going to help to kind of adjust, like you said, those best practices, right, to kind of better forecast in the future also for other brands or even internally.
100%. Yeah, I love that you brought that up. Forecasting is probably the funniest conversation I have with my brands because
Mm.
obviously especially like a brand that's launching on Amazon, the
Oh, that's
question's
tough.
always like, hey, we need to forecast the first 6 months. How much do we need to spend on advertising? And I'm sure you know this. It's like, hold on. There's like 100 assumptions we're gonna have to make here, and it's all gonna be a little bit of and using the data we have, but you don't know until you're really like in there into the weeds, right? Um,
Yeah.
well, this has been awesome, man. One of the questions Nico, I got to ask as we start winding down. This one I'm excited to hear from you because we do very similar work. So, what are the tools that you surround yourself with? The tools to map out life goals, big long term goals, yearly goals, all the way down to daily tasks. Like, what's the shit that Nico's got to get done today? Are you a pen and paper kind of guy? Are you an apps kind of person? I always love to ask ecom people because we're in ecom, but sometimes that's not what you'd expect people to say.
Actually, I do have a pen here, but I don't think I ever use it. So I'm not a pen, a pen person. I wish I was, but I'd say Notion. Notion is my number one, right? To
Okay.
kind of
Yeah.
track like my task or write down my thoughts as well. But another one, sometimes when I really need to do something, maybe especially on the weekend, right? Sometimes I set tasks on the weekend on my calendar. So in order to get those tasks done, I really need to get them like time blocked within the calendar and say exactly the task that I need to be done to get done. Because I can have like my Notion board. Usually I leverage my Notion board for like my weekly task, right? I have those 10 tasks that I need to accomplish, etc. But then if there is really something that I need to do on the weekend, I then really use my calendar and time block, that space time box, how do you say it? That specific like hour to get that task done, because that's what makes me then feel good. Okay, I move that task early in the day as okay, this is done. Great, I have more time to do something else now.
I love it.
So that's simple as that.
Yeah. It's funny. I would say over the last 6 months, Notion has been the answer that I've gotten from almost every single person. It used to be like a random combination of pen and paper and all kinds of shit. It's really interesting. I've actually been trying to figure out Notion recently. I gave it a shot like a year ago, and honestly, I felt overwhelmed. Like it was like there was so much
Yeah.
shit in it. But then recently, do you know who Shrey Joshi is by
Hmm.
chance? So he was the
Yeah.
one that pushed me to try it again, and I've been living in it. Like it's once you like I have like a little like database with all my tasks, and then I created pages for like work and
Mm.
life and all this stuff, and it's remarkably customizable, but not too like you can make it into whatever you want, which is super cool, right? Like like you can make it into whatever you need it for, which is hard to explain to people until you get into it. I'll have to get some best practices from you after the podcast because I think Notion's one of those weird things. Like people that are in it, they're like, I'll never switch to anything else. It's unbelievable. And then to get the learning curve, in my opinion, is so high though.
Yeah. That's a little bit the problem of Notion, that there's these learning curves that takes time, right, to kind of build out. But something else that I've been using recently, which is not like really to kind of track my daily stuff, or it's more maybe to save important like links and documents, etc. So before I used to use like Notion as a database of all the links. This is where I save everything, right? But then I noticed that I was spending most of my time on Slack anyway. So I have
Ah,
different channels on Slack, and then
yeah.
within each channel there is now the Canvas,
Oh
area.
yeah, I
There's
haven't
also the
played with
file
it.
area.
Is it pretty
So
good?
I started to play with that because the Canvas area I use it to kind of give context about what the channel is. Maybe the channel is about, marketing update of the week, right? So in this channel, we're going to discuss about marketing updates. And then there is the file section where I have all the important links for the
Oh,
marketing team, right?
okay.
So because I noticed I'm spending so much time on Slack anyway, so probably was the easiest way. And I still use Notion, for my own task to save some important stuff. But I think a combination of both. It's been, what's important for me. And then, of course, for email related, unrelated, superhuman as a way to go.
You're funny, man. You and me, we have very similar things. I do use pen and paper. There's something for me like daily having it written down helps me to. I have ADD, so sometimes I feel like when I'm just on my computer, I'm like bing bing bing, but I'm like I just gravitate to whatever I'm like fired up about in the moment. So pen and paper helps me, but I love Notion too. I've also tried. Um, I have tried at one point. This is gonna sound funny. I'd be curious if you ever tried this. I tried basically like only using my calendar. So basically, like anytime I had anything I had to do, it had to get thrown in my calendar. I learned this from. I'll put the link in the show notes. There is a podcast with Tim Ferriss and Sam Korkos. I think is how you pronounce his last name. Have you seen this before? He's the guy that started Levels, which is like the CGM company. Have you seen that podcast?
I don't think I saw that podcast, that episode.
So I'll give you guys like the 10-second overview. So Sam argues that to-do lists are they're the worst thing ever created because it's giving you the wrong mechanism to get things done. He's like, a list is endless. So you'll always have lists and you don't feel like you're making progress. And he goes, if you force people for a week to put everything that they have to do on their calendar, he said the first thing that always happens is his team will come back to him and say, hey, Sam, I tried doing this. There just wasn't enough room in my calendar for all the tasks. And then, of course, he laughs. And he's like, that's the point. Like, there never will be. And so he said it took him, 6 months or so, but now only his calendars is his to-do list. And he said once you finally make a switch to that, he's like, I still use Notion. I still use these tools for other things. But he's like, if your to-do list is all in a calendar, then immediately you don't drop any balls, because if you have to move something and it's due to somebody, you move it and you can email them, Slack them, whatever, and say, hey, I ran out of time. I'm doing this tomorrow at 9. I'll get back to you. But he's like, I just never drop any balls. Like, everything's in the calendar. And it's funny. Like, I think I've been thinking lately, this is a nerdy thing that maybe we can talk separately about. I'm like, there's room for a company that, like, it's kind of like Notion. You can like plug everything into it to keep track of your tasks, or if you're an agency, all your clients and the things you have to get done. But it just goes into your calendar, and you only really manage it in your calendar, if that makes sense. So everything has to be scheduled at some point. You can't just like have it on the list unless it's a way off task. That's my end of my ramble. It's just really interesting because I love talking to people about productivity because it's interesting. We all do it a little bit different, and we all try to get the same thing done.
Yeah, and I like the calendar. Like I said, I use the calendar a lot, especially on the weekend. But the good thing, because I'm in Europe, is that my morning are kind of free, right? So I can put the task in there. So I like that
Yeah,
I can
that's
put
awesome.
a lot of like to do during the morning as like a task within the calendar, or weekend as well. But yeah, I agree with
I'm
you.
almost
Meanwhile, when
jealous.
I'm
I'm almost jealous of you. I feel like I need to move to Italy because that would be it'd be so nice to have like the full morning to just do
yeah, but
deep
then the
work.
downside is the evening. I miss out during the week on like going out or
Sure.
whatever.
Do you have like a hard work cutoff though? Like, do people at Kettle and Fire just expect you to be on until 10 o'clock at night?
I like to be up like at least until 10 o'clock most of the time. Sometimes I got calls maybe at 10 that if I have to take them, I take them. I don't care. But usually between 10 and 11, I try to say, okay, that's it.
I gotta go to bed. Yeah.
Gonna go.
Love it, man. Well, thank you. I know we're over time, and I'm sure you got to run. Thank you for taking the time, Nico. It was great to meet you, man.
Likewise.
Well, I'll post links to like your LinkedIn and all your different links here that I'll get from you. But yeah, man. Anything else you want to plug before we jump?
No, thanks for having me. It was very, very nice. Great
Awesome.
chatting with you.
Yeah, man. I appreciate it, and let's stay in touch.
Right now.